I downloaded the YARA and Sigma rules tool from the App Exchange and install it on the admin tab, extension management. I'm sure you have done that. Now, the first time that, after refreshing the screen, of course, when you go here, the first time that you go to the app, you're going to find that it's going to force you to provide a token. If you have the token already created, you can put it there and proceed. If you need to generate one, which is a good practice for every app to have its own token, you will need to deploy changes for that. And after you've done that, you go here. Now, you may see on the admin tab a message that says you need to deploy because there's a new DSM created. Where that comes from, I don't want you to get lost. When I go into my log sources, let me point that out. I'm going to sort them by the most recent one. That's the oldest. This is the most recent one. The app itself deploys this DSM, right? And that DSM is because this app does a whole bunch of auditing about it. So that's why it needs to actually create that. And that's what is the second requirement for the deploy changes. I think that you can get away by not doing the deploy changes the second time, but you will not be correcting the logs for it. But it's, well, at some point you may have to deploy those changes again. Now, the first things when you go into the app that you need to do, when we're going to start with the YARA portion of it, is to create a namespace. A namespace is, think of it as a folder for putting related YARA rules. And this is a repository that you are going to love and it's going to grow. So it's a good idea to be organized. So you're going to put all the, phishing, X vulnerabilities, exploit, whatever is it that you create the namespaces for it, right? Now, let's actually go ahead and create one. And this one that I'm going to create, I'm going to call it AQL malware. AQL is an organization that helps you with testing antivirus stuff, and we're going to use a YARA rule and a sample malware for that. This is mainly to test the tool and for you to get acquainted with it. And in this namespace, where are we going to get that? We can get it from GitHub. More on that later. We're going to do an example of that. But right now, we're going to upload it from my downloads directory. And this is the one that I'm going to upload. And by the way, all these files are going to be provided in a folder called Nigel. In the link to my public box folder is in the video description of all of my videos. So we upload that YARA rule, and here we see it. We see that it has two components. One is for file and one is for URL. And in here, it detects the presence of this particular pattern. That's how this is going to work. So if you are happy, you can add a description. But once you are ready, and by the way, you can edit it in here if you want to. Once you're good with it, you submit it. Now we have a namespace with just one YARA rule that has two sub components in it. Now comes the next part. We're going to test this out. And to do that, we go here under Investigate. And you can have multiple ways of doing this. You can paste, copy paste the content of a particular thing that you want to see that pattern matching go against. You can have an AQL search, a safe search, or upload a file. We're actually going to upload a file. And the file that we're going to use for that is this one, acar.txt. If I open it, you see the pattern that all it has is that pattern, and we want that rule to test for that pattern. So we have uploaded that, and we're going to select a namespace. We only have one in here, so we're going to select that. We click here, and before I do click here, you have the option to put any rule of all the rules. If you want all of them to match, I'm going to leave it the more general, which is anyone that matches is good. You can put all the rules in that namespace, which is only one with two subsections, or you can be more specific and select, for example, the one for the file, because this is the one that we are going to actually use. Once you're happy with your selection, you click here, Add Name Selection, and you have it here added, and now you can just perform a scan, and boom, it says, you know, yep, I find an instance of that. So we know that this is actually working. Let's actually move on into the next phase, which is we're going to replace some logs for log4j that I have for more than I think it was close to 2 years that we did the log4j stuff. And you're going to see that working. Now that we know that our system is ready, let's test it with something a little bit more realistic. So we are going to replay the logs, and I'm using this file which use log run, done videos on it, that is going to replay that log, that file that contains sys log4j logs, and that file is also provided in that box folder, by the way. So we just replay that, and that file is for an Apache HTTP server, and I added a DSM for it. Oh, that's going to change, and it's saying that it hasn't seen a log, but I just replay it. And I want you to notice this log source ID. Actually, let me test that out and see that we make sure that we are getting logs from it. Going to my log activity tab. Let me actually quickly go here and do a select asterisk from events where log source ID equals, and that number was 28412 last 1 hour. Oh. There we are, and run that search. Yeah, we are getting those logs. Good. So we're going to create a separate namespace. We're going to call it log4j, and we are going to import from GitHub. And as I mentioned in the introductory video, you go to this particular page and you can find a ton of YARA rules that you want to add. I'm going to bring the one that for log4j, I already found the path. I'm going to do the import using that. So I got it here. I click import, and this is again one from Florian Roth. This guy is really impressive. So many things he have contributed in here. So and here we see a whole bunch of YARA rules in here. So we have imported those into the log4j namespace. Scroll down to the bottom and click submit, and there we are. Now we can go into the investigate portion of it, right? And notice that it has memory on where you actually were before on this app. So we're going to override all these. Now we are going to be testing this with, actually we can use the AQL that we did before. Let me actually paste it in here. So let's go into under investigate. We're going to do AQL. We're going to paste that AQL search that we did. Again, we are selecting the entire rule. You may want to be a little bit more granular in your environment. So we select the namespace. Add namespace selection is added in here. Let's actually run a scan. Bingo. We found all these entries on all those rules that were on that file in here, and we can actually see the content. These are the asterisks, so he selected everything. If you want to, for example, get the payload, actually modify this Let's replace the asterisk for that, and let's run it again. We should see the content of the actual payload, and there we have it, right? So I hope that this opens new possibilities for QRadar. And there's going to be another video for the Sigma part, but this just on YARA alone. Now you can exploit the wealth of content that exists in YARA. The day after an exploit is found, those guys work very diligently in creating the YARA definitions, and now with this app that Nigel Soot created, we can get that into QRadar right away. Speed is on the essence for this detection. I hope that you find this tool extraordinarily useful, and I'm going to do the next video is going to be on the Sigma portion, in which we are going to do something similar but converting it to a QRadar rule.